Hello there, I'm Miranda and this is Take a Moment with NCHC, the show where we talk to you and your colleagues about experiences that affect you. Listen on your drive between patients or in your downtime, whenever you get the chance to take a moment.
So my name is Jenny Gilbert. I am an occupational therapist and clinical lead of the wheelchair service.
I've never spoken to anyone about this service before. I haven't used the service myself. I don't know a huge amount about it. So
Mm.
tell me a bit about the service. First of all, what is it? Is it literally, as it sounds, providing wheelchairs for people?
Yeah, but it's also a lot more than that. We dip our toes into so many different services that you've probably come across us, but you might not have known. So the way that we work is we see anyone aged 3 right the way up to 300 if they're still going. We get such a wonderful variety. But because of that, it means that we dip into children's services, we dip into neuro, we dip into elderly, falls. We've got so many different strings to our bows, and I love it. We see such a great variety of people. I mean, essentially, yes, we dish out wheelchairs, but we do so much more than that. We see people's lives go from being in one room or just stuck in their armchair to being able to move around the house, to being able to go out and about with their family, and to be able to go to school, go to day services. We're enabling so much. And when you see someone who's maybe a new spinal injury and they are struggling with that whole process, and we put them in a wheelchair that is just so well set up that they can do so much, it's just fantastic. I've got goosebumps thinking about it because we're just so lucky to be able to do that in someone's life. And the other thing that I really love about it is that we keep people right the way through. So we might see someone aged 3 and then we'll see them every year all the way up. So I've got colleagues that have worked in the service for almost 20 odd years, and they followed these young people into adults. And that's just so rewarding. You can't do that in another service. We're so lucky.
It's interesting to me that it's not just about putting someone in a piece of hardware and dealing with
Yeah.
the kind of physical side of it. Do you have to then get involved with people's mental health as well in terms of how they understand their injury and come to terms with what's happened and then obviously use the
Yeah.
kit?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with a wheelchair is that maybe in other services, someone might be looking to walk again, looking to move themselves a bit more independently. The thing with a wheelchair is that it's often highlighting that that's someone's potential, that that's what they've got to. And I think people see that as a really negative thing, but we don't. We see it as being able to enable someone to do more. And sometimes it's a really big decision to be a wheelchair user. It's a really brave decision for someone to say, actually, no, I'm not safe walking anymore. Or, to enable a child to move themselves independently. That's a really big thing for a parent to do. So, yeah, it's really difficult. We dip into a lot of areas there, and we've got a fantastic clinician whose background is in mental health, and it's so interesting seeing how she works with people in such a unique way. And very often, it's not about the wheelchair at all. It's about everything else that someone's dealing with, and it's tough. It is very emotionally challenging, but when you get it right, it's so rewarding.
I can
Mm.
imagine. And obviously, there's a lot there that I wouldn't have thought about in relation to the service. But is there anything else about the wheelchair service that people might not know that is maybe, an interesting fact?
I find it really interesting that when you think of a wheelchair, you maybe think of someone moving it with their arms. You might think of a powered wheelchair where someone's driving it with their hand. We have people that drive with their chin, so they're power chair drivers. They're able to drive with their chin. They might have a sip and puff, so they blow into a straw that moves the chair. That a lot of our chairs are so advanced now that they are able to integrate into other devices. So someone might be able to turn the telly on from the chair. So actually, like, we're really, really integrated, and the chair is like an extension of a lot of our patients. It's not just something that we give to someone; it's something that they help build with us very often. So we might work with someone to really build what they want to, and it might be a way up between function, so being able to do what they need to do, and comfort and posture and everything else. So between us all, it's a very collaborative process. And I think often when you think of the wheelchair service, you think of us doing to people, but that's not what we do. so much more about what the patient is bringing and what they want. And sometimes we might have them sitting in a way that isn't ideal, but if that means that they can put the washing up or they can take the dog for a walk, then that's the important thing to them.
So in a way that must have come along with technical advancements that have
Hmm.
just sort of come in over the years. And that sounds like it's come a long way. I can imagine not even that long ago, it would have been just here is a chair, it's the only one we've got, kind of get on with it. So, I mean, how long has
Yeah.
the service been going?
The service has been here as long as time, I think. I mean, some of our colleagues in the service have been there for, going on 20 years or so. Some even, I think, almost 30 years. And that's amazing to see the changes. And even when you speak to some of our patients, they'll have had like a bit of a rust bucket that they used to sort of go around in, and now they've got quite an exciting bit of kit. And it's challenging because with big kit comes a lot of expense, and so there's something that we do called a personal wheelchair budget, which is where we give someone the amount of money that we would have spent on a chair, and they could have a look on the private market or top up within our range. So it allows the patient to have a lot more independence and control over how they manage that aspect of their budget, which has really changed the way that things have worked over time and changed the way that we interact with them. And what I've noticed, even just over the few years that I've been in the service, is that people have really become a lot more empowered, and they might come to an appointment saying, this is something that I've seen, would it work for me? So our knowledge base is much bigger than just our immediate range of chairs. It's as big as not every chair, but it's much bigger because we have to be aware of everything else that's out there to enable our patients to get the best care and the best from their equipment. But yeah, it's really interesting when you look even back on some of the chairs that are becoming obsolete that we're needing to replace, that are basically a static wheelchair with a bit of a power pack on them. And now we've got these amazing devices that will rise, that will tilt, will recline. And what that does to someone's posture and their function is just astounding, to be able to adjust someone's posture, to be able to tilt themselves so that they're not having to go to bed as frequently during the day, to be able to relieve their pressure, to be able to even have a seat raiser if they purchased it as a top up. And then that means that they can reach the top shelf of their cupboards and things. So things are changing all the time. And a lot of what we do is about project awareness. And we work very closely with our different companies that come in and support us with clinics. And we couldn't do what we do without them. And having that knowledge base is so important. And even as a team, we're not just made up of occupational therapists or physiotherapists. We have rehab engineers in the team. We work very closely with our amazing repair service to ensure that we're a full team and we're running as good a service as we can for our patients. But we rely heavily on that change in skill set and having those other clinicians with different knowledge to come together as a full team and provide the best care that we can.
As you were talking there, I was thinking the aspect of listening to the patients and getting that feedback on what would make their life easier. And then, like you say, working with the services, the people who provide the chairs and the technological side of it all, you could potentially feed back to the chair manufacturers and say, oh, have you thought about creating one that does this? Is
Yeah,
that something that you guys think you could have the power to do?
so we actually do. We take that feedback and we go back to the companies, and we say, have you ever tried to adjust this foot plate? What a nightmare. And they listen to that and they change things. And I don't think people always appreciate just how powerful as a service, we can be. I always say when that patient's in the room with me, they are the number one person, they're the most important person. And we don't always get it right. It's not an easy job that we do, trying to make sure that we're meeting everyone's needs, especially when some of those expectations of what we can provide might not match up with what someone is able to do. So someone might really love to be able to move themselves independently, but if they don't have the ability to do that anymore, what can we do instead? And so sometimes, we're delivering really, really tough news. And that's not an easy thing to do. And having the skill to be able to do that sensitively, because unlike other teams, we don't discharge them. They stay with us for life. So we have to get that relationship right. It's so important.
That is a really good point, isn't it? That we are used to rehabilitating our patients and then waving them off good luck for the rest of your life kind of thing. And then obviously refer back if you need us again. But 9 times out of 10, I guess people don't. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, to hear that you have them for life it is a huge relationship building exercise that you have to do right at the start. If you were to get that wrong, what would happen? I mean, they'd still have, there isn't, is there another service in Norfolk that they could use? I mean, do you know what I mean? Not that I'm suggesting you would get it wrong, but I just think, there must be some people who, like you say, it's a sensitive subject. What if someone took it really badly and just, there was anger there was resentment, there was frustration, and that relationship didn't go as well as you hoped it would? Has that happened?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, as a team, as humans, we don't love everyone that we meet. We don't get on with everyone that we meet. I might have someone come into my clinic and for some reason we don't gel, and that's fine. That's why we have a team that we do. We don't keep the same individual person right the way through, because also I might look at a problem slightly differently. We'd always get to the same result, but a colleague with a different background might think of it in a different way. So it's so important that actually, as a team, a patient doesn't become reliant on one person. If I'm the person that meets someone and says, "You're going to be a full time wheelchair user forever," I imagine that they probably won't like me that much. And that's okay. I'm not there to be liked. It would be nice, but my job is to ensure that someone gets the best care. Sometimes that means moving them around and making sure that they're seeing some other people, and perhaps just someone different might have a different way, or someone delivering news on a better day for that person might just be what they need. I think taking things too personally can be a problem sometimes, and that's not something that as a team we do, because we know that we are going to support this person forever. And equally, it means that we build some really nice relationships with people, and people will come back to the service. In terms of the area that we cover, and do people have any other options? No, is the quick answer. So in 2018, the West Norfolk service, the wheelchair service for the whole of the West, went into administration. We took them over overnight and have, built up a clinic over there, and we cover the whole of Norfolk apart from the East Coast now. I think that's the other benefit of having the personal wheelchair budget, is that there are other options outside of our remit now. It's not an NHS chair or nothing. People have the option to utilize that finance as they would like to. And I've I'm not aware of anyone that has been at a stage where they just won't engage with the service. We've always been able to manage expectations well enough, but we are often the bearer of bad news, and that's okay. Sometimes people need someone to have frustrations with, and we get that.
Our clinicians take a lot on their shoulders when it comes to giving bad
Mm,
news and
mm,
receiving that
mm.
kind of feedback. And I think it must make you guys a really strong team if you can turn to each other for support.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got a team around us where we feel quite settled, I think, or we're getting there. There's a lot of bigger projects going on in the wheelchair service. We're almost looking ahead at sort of 5-10 years time before we're at the point that we want to be. And I think we'll constantly be chasing a ball down a hill. But the relationship that we have with our repair service as well, who are also in-house, they're also NCHC staff. They are brilliant, and we definitely have built a really good relationship with them over the years. And yeah, you need to be able to come back from a difficult day and talk to colleagues and say, "Oh, this happened, and this didn't go to plan, and this wasn't quite right, and what would you do?" And to bounce that idea off someone is so important. None of us have all the answers, and we're all always learning. And I think that's the other thing that I love about the wheelchair service, is that I haven't had a day yet where I've not learnt something. I don't think any of my colleagues have. We're always learning things, and that's what's so rewarding about it, is that things are always changing.
So in terms of the team, you're a line manager. So you're slightly perhaps a bit more senior in the team, but you're also interestingly quite young in this role. Is that right?
Well, thank you very much. In terms of running the service, leading the service, yeah, I'm now acting clinical lead. So I've moved into more of an operation and daily kind of leadership role within the team. I've been in post since the start of June. It's August now, so I am very, very new to it, and I've only actually been in the wheelchair service for 3 years, and qualified for 5. So things have happened quite quickly, and I wasn't really expecting that. I think what the service needed was actually someone who didn't know everything and could just be really curious. And that's definitely something that I hope I am. I don't know everything. And so I'm very, very nosy. I want to know everything about every other service going on. I think we're such a great service. We're doing great things. And yeah, I am new to it, but I'm learning as I go and I'm making mistakes and I'm learning from them, but that's okay.
So, as a new manager in, what was the first thing you thought you wanted to tackle? Because it can be quite tempting to come in and
Mhm.
change a whole bunch of stuff or, launch a whole new load of new initiatives. And actually, that can be a little bit intimidating for the existing staff. So, did you have that sense, or were there things you wanted to try and do, or did you sort of sit back and see how things were run first? What was your approach?
Yeah. So I think because I'd been in the service as a senior clinician, so I'd been an OT in an occupational therapist in the service for 3 years, I already had that sense of what the service maybe was looking like and where it might be going. So I was really lucky in that sense because I had a little bit of the groundwork there. I think the experience of previous managers is that there's a lot of tail chasing, trying to get to a point where they can then implement some change. For me, it was about being really stable. There was a lot of flux going on in the team. We had a lot of people coming and going, a lot of changes. We're constantly changing equipment. So for the service to feel stable was really important. So a lot of what I've done is just about writing down the processes of what we do, making sure everyone's doing the same thing and sharing some of that knowledge. So one of the main things that I've brought in is a thing called action learning sets. So this is where, as a clinical team, we have a huddle. So every Thursday we all get together as a clinical team. Someone presents a case that they're working on, and as a team, from our junior staff right the way up to Venu, who's our link consultant who comes along to that meeting, we all share our thoughts about it. And it's really interesting actually to hear that even if someone hasn't been in the wheelchair service for long, they might look at it from a different perspective. They might consider something differently. So for me, the main things that I wanted to do as a new line manager and a new manager within this very complex service was level it out, make it nice and stable, nice and secure for people, make sure people know where they stand, what they can do, what they can't do, make sure that everyone's happy and knows what on earth is going on, and then to try and share that knowledge. So we have some of our colleagues are very senior in their knowledge, but possibly working towards retirement, and I don't want them to go with all that knowledge. I want it. So I want to take all of the knowledge that I can from everyone around me, and I want that to be shared among the clinical team, because that's the only way that we're going to stay up to date and supersede ourselves. We will only get better through constantly learning and taking on knowledge.
I think, coming in as a new manager is obviously you've got this kind of energy that you're bringing to it. So just talking to anybody out there who might be an OT or somebody who is thinking, what's my next step in terms of career progression? Is it a line manager? Is it a leader of some description? But
Mhm.
maybe they're thinking, oh, I'm a bit young. Do I need to try and do something else first? What's your advice to somebody thinking about their next step in their career progression?
Yeah, I mean, I would say be really curious. I'm a terribly nosy person. And if I hear that something's interesting, something's happening, I'll say, can I come along to that? I think for me, it wasn't about being a manager, it was about being passionate about something that I really, really enjoy. And I really like seeing people improve and change. And for me, it was about supporting people to develop. I think also as a woman, it's difficult to speak up and to say, I want to lead, I want to do this. We know the research says that if a man were to apply for a job and they had sort of, I think it's like 20% of the skill, then they'd still go for it. Whereas a woman needs at least 80% before they even consider applying. And I just think that's a real shame. How many women are out there that we're missing out on because they aren't feeling that they're able to do something? So I just think being curious, and I wouldn't really say that there's been a massive jump from me being just a really curious, nosy senior clinician to now being a team leader, a clinical lead management, because I've just become curious in bigger meetings. And I'm just asking my questions to bigger people, and they're giving me more big answers. I don't feel like you need to be something to learn how to do it. I mean, I'm really lucky at my line manager is Charlotte Wilson. She's fairly new into post as well, and she is very curious. And so I've really watched her just go and seek. She will just look for things, and she will find things, and she will go for it, and she'll keep hunting things down. And if she wants to know how something works, she'll go and find the person that made the thing and ask them. And I think that curiosity is what you need if you're wanting to change. And actually, not everyone is made to be a leader, and sometimes being really curious within whatever line of work you do, I think that's just as important.
Thank you for listening to Take a Moment with NCHC. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please visit the podcast intranet page to leave a comment and for details of our other episodes. You can also follow NCHC on all social media channels.